Hello and welcome to Hikima Council's Makala podcast. Makala means branches ka Sesotho, and on this podcast, we hope to journey with you hand in hand like the branches of a tree. My name is Amanda Masondo and I'm your host. We hope this podcast finds a way to impact, educate, and inspire your next. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Buzzsprout, basically everywhere where you find your podcast fix, every first and last Friday of every month. Hello and welcome to Hikima Council's Makala podcast. Welcome home, guys. As per usual, if you're listening to me now, it means it is either the first or the last Friday of the month, and we are here to give you inspirational stories from amazing entrepreneurs that are doing amazing work in their various spheres, and today is no different. My guest today, Mandla Ngcobo. He is the founder of Accelerit Technologies. Hello, sir.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. And how are you?
Fantastic. I'm good. Thanks for coming.
My pleasure. Yeah.
So, you did not always start off as a founder, someone who starts things out and runs companies and, has invested in people wanting to give them money. Where did you start? Where were you born and raised?
Newcastle, KZN, so that's home. Because we do Natal. Born and bred, born in a small town called Utrecht. I studied there pretty much throughout my primary and high school years, then went to Cape Town after that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you studied what in Cape Town?
Computer science, and I specialized in computer engineering.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, now we are studying how does the world of technology, what is your relationship with technology at that stage before you get to varsity?
So before varsity, tech has always been a fascinating subject for me. So since high school, actually, when they introduced computer science, I was one of the first students to enroll. Not because of a career path, but just sheer curiosity, right? So you see things working, you see an ATM spewing out money, someone presses buttons and it gives out money. So how does it work? Yeah. So it was just that curiosity. And then going into the programming of this thing to see how do you make it respond to certain actions. So you put in a code and it gives you money. How does all of that work? The nitty-gritties of it. Yeah. So it wasn't really inspired by, from a career path perspective, that there's opportunities, but more just curiosity.
I want to know.
I want to tinker.
Fantastic stuff. Okay, let's talk about what then happens after varsity. Do you go to work? What happens then?
So varsity still continued doing programming, specializing a little bit more in the mathematical side of it though, like the algorithms. Now you're getting into learning the patterns and that. Okay. And then after that, I joined Accenture, so it's a consulting firm. Yeah. But because of even the stream that I chose there was specifically around telecommunications, right? Connecting people, which somehow fits in with my passion of, okay, we've got technology, there is access that's needed, how do we marry the two? Okay. And I went into that, specializing in telecoms, worked with pretty much all the telcos in SA, and some abroad as well, so we did some exciting projects in Africa. Dubai, we did a project. Singapore, we did a project. So that's the beauty of being in a consulting firm, right? Is that you get to move around a lot in a very short space of time. Yeah. Amazing.
Let's go back a bit. I read somewhere, I researched. You come from a family of entrepreneurs. Yeah. Who are these people? Tell us through how you tapped into the world of entrepreneurship from a young age.
Pretty much everyone I came across it. My mother, apparently she worked at some point, but when I was born, she wasn't working. She was self-employed. Okay. She sold things.
So you don't know an employed mother?
She'd buy and sell stuff. Yeah. So come to Joburg, buy stuff, go back to KZN and sell it. Okay. At a markup. My dad had taxis that he operated, although he was employed as a driver in a mine, but he also had taxis that he grew a fleet from one taxi until he had about 5 of them. So that's always been in that ecosystem of people just grinding it out, figuring it out.
Yeah. Okay. And at that stage, is it called entrepreneurship, or what is it called?
So maybe there's 2 parts to your question. So the first part is for my parents. It was about sustenance. So it's how do we make enough money to supplement what we were making, especially for my dad. I think it was a question of, do you remember back then you're working for a mine? You know?
Yeah.
It's not a glorious thing to drive people around. But you've got these kids and it's a big family. So how do you afford to then take this massive family through school, which is also a foreign concept to him because he didn't really go to school.
Okay.
But he knows that this thing is expensive.
Yeah.
So I have to figure it out.
And then I have to send these kids to school.
I have to send them to school, yeah. So I think for them that was, the goal behind it.
Yeah.
But for me, being an entrepreneur was more about freedom than anything else.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love that. And your interaction with money at that stage? Okay, what did you do with your
Largely exposed. No,
Yeah.
seriously, before my first paycheck so taxis would come back and they would cash out.
Yes.
So I was the guy who counted.
Okay.
Just like-
I saw money, you saw right-handed. You did double money right-handed.
Yeah, so there was, at a very early stage, being exposed to that, you start to figure out, this is how this thing works. On weekends, you have your own small tuck shop, right, where you sell stuff in the Makala. You sell it for profit, and then it sinks in. Hey, actually, I can do it.
You can bring money.
And this is how it works.
Yeah.
Right? Is you find a niche, you satisfy a need, but then you add what you qualify as your value, you add that as your markup, and then it pretty much sees you through life.
Gives you a profit and you buy more.
Yeah, you buy more food, yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Okay, and then what then inspires you to formulate Accelerit?
So let's go back to that story about connectivity, right, and reaching people.
Yeah.
So before that, so I'm in high school and I'm exposed to computers and connectivity. Now I can do my research. Right? And it was a small class of about 10 in a very big school. So when there's an assignment out, my depth goes quite deeper because I've got technology, right? So I can do my research and I'm a lot more efficient. Now realizing that and thinking, hey, but why is it that only 10 people are exposed to this? Why don't we expose more people to it? Is what drove me into going into specifically connectivity and wanting to make it broadly accessible, right? So figuring out that this thing seems complicated and a lot of the people that you talk to, they think it's very complicated. So how do I get connectivity? And back then it probably was. Right? But when you get into it and you realize that I am happy to take on the complexity, but simplify it for the person who just wants to connect and do their research and submit an assignment. Someone who wants to figure out, if you're in the world of arts, you're on the research, you don't have to go to and pay exorbitant amounts going to a school. You can actually do it online, you can research. It's just about making it accessible. So even that story wasn't more about the money element, it was more about accessibility. How do we get this thing, how do we get a mass audience exposed to this thing and its benefits and the education components to it. So that really is what drove me into saying that even though I was employed, but I looked at corporate, obviously, and I think a lot of the entities, including Accelerit, we are a for-profit organization. But if you're gonna, if you're driven by high margins, it's going to be very difficult to take this thing and deploy it to the masses, because the masses probably, from a margin perspective and affordability perspective, do not have a lot of cash to spare. Right. So it was then about, okay, so you've got this thing that people need, that is complicated, so simplify it and make it accessible by making it cheap. Right? Not cheap from a value perspective that it gives them, but cheap from an accessibility, affordable. Right? So that people can
actually access to it. Okay. Talking about simplifying it, let's define what the task or how would you define what Accelerit does? If somebody were to open the door right now and say, Mandla, what exercise do you do? What is the element?
So I think in its simplest form, making connectivity accessible. But let's not talk about connectivity, because you're like, what's connectivity?
Connectivity.
Right? Yeah. So let's make information accessible, make data accessible to people. So by data is if you're a farmer and you want to know what happened historically, so that you can look at patterns and start planning, okay, my crops, this is what I need to have.
Yes.
And not because historically we've got the data, how do we make sure that we use it to empower what we're going to be doing next and the steps that we're going to take next. The investment that we need to make is Accelerit really focuses on that. There's connectivity and there's internet, but that's not really what we sell. Right? So we're selling that value that comes with that is now we're rolling out in underserved, but very densely populated communities. And the reason for that is because if someone is there and they've got a challenge from a security perspective, so they want to install a ring, right? So that intercom thing that detects when someone is at your gate. From a security perspective is you want to know, if someone passes by, someone tinkers with your gate, you want to know what's happening. If you don't have broadband, right, high-speed connectivity, that's not going to be possible. Even though the actual gadget isn't that expensive now, but because you don't have connectivity, you're going to be closed out. Perpetually, you're in this. And even psychologically, people start to associate Township with high crime rates. How do we solve it? We then put in connectivity. You say, okay, now you've got connectivity on top of connectivity. So we're selling you connectivity, but that's not our pitch. Our pitch is let's talk about security. It's all about information. It's all about entertainment. It's all about education for your kids. So that's really our pitch. Before we even talk, what speed do you need? Let's understand your needs. And then we can put in front of you a solution and a package that we think will satisfy your needs. Right? And in some instances, we go in and we say, okay, well, we understand because this is a journey. That's what our product is called. In these areas, it's a great journey. It focuses on let's get you in and let's walk with you through that adoption care. So as you then, it works really well with my entertainment with my kids. Can I put on my NVR that's got 16 channels and it's high definition to my phone wherever I am in the world? Then at that time, at that point, we say to you, then we think that you're ready for a faster package. So it's always centered around what is it that you need. Right, so that's what Accelerit sells. It unlocks that for you.
Sure. All right, for each and every customer. Okay.
And it's tailored. For someone who's in the prep, someone who's in the township, rural farmers, we look at what they need and then we tailor it.
And did you think that was something that was lacking in the space before you guys came?
Yeah, so I think in how it was packaged, it wasn't. Because it was, in fact, I think only now people are getting into connecting townships, right? Because a lot of the money was chasing high LSM areas. Even prior, so if you think about telecom, and a lot of the townships didn't really have broadband, didn't really have connectivity. We had phones, but we didn't have internet. And maybe there was a perception that we didn't need connectivity. And it still is the case now. So if you look at the stats, and in terms of the number of households that are connected, there's less than 4 million households that are connected. You think, let's maybe roughly say, population-wise, scale it down to actual homes, 20 million. So there's a massive gap, right? And I'm talking broadband, affordable connectivity. Still not connected. And because a lot of the money chased high LSM areas, now there is that period where, the banks want their interest. Banks want their money back before they can roll out fiber into other areas. Because already you chase the high LSM with the view that the returns are going to be phenomenal in a very short space of time. So even the financing fees are high. Much. And so when you work it back to your model, I must charge higher for me to recover and pay the banks.
Which doesn't work for the community that you're trying to serve.
Right? So now you've got to find someone who's going to look at where do I want to roll out and what is the vision behind it is I want to make it affordable. Which means I must get cheap money, not that cheap in the sense that I can, whatever enables me to roll out connectivity at an affordable rate so that I can pass it on. That affordability, pass it on to the end user. So there's massive gaps there. There's a lot of money. The money is chasing high margins. Township, when you think about it, is affordability, not going to get it, so the money's going to be parked. So still need to address that, right? And I think that's squarely where we play in, and what our focus is now when we go into these densely populated areas which are underserved. And underserved doesn't mean rural.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people who misunderstand when we say underserved. And they're like, but how are you going to get connectivity in rural areas where there's one home? I'm like, no, but that's not what we, that's not what we're doing.
Yeah.
And I think from an impact perspective as well, we want to get the masses connected. We're not saying we are abandoning the
rural areas. But you have to master this first before you can.
From an impact. So is there a gap now? Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Let's talk about your experience as a business consultant, right? How did that mold how you ran your own business? Did you find that you learned a few things there that you were able to implement?
Absolutely. So when I was in consulting, my specialty was in going into companies that needed help.
Yeah.
In many ways. So it could be help because they want to buy another company. Help, they've bought another company, they want to absorb it. So how do we restructure this thing so that it accommodates? Integrated from a technology perspective, from a people perspective. Or we want to roll out in Rwanda. What we did is they looked at, wasn't even 5G at the time. It's a 3G. It was 3G or something. Like could have been LTE. But it was about broadband, and it's a brand new model.
Yeah.
Right? Is that people have been talking. Now we want to connect. We want them to use the internet. How do we roll it out? So it's literally forming a new company. With this company, from an operating model perspective, is what do I need for it to be functional?
Yeah.
All the way. Technology, the billing components, this and that and that. From a people perspective, CIOs, and it's not just one area where I did this. So it was not only in Rwanda, but we went and did stuff across Africa, including the UAE, where we're looking at now consolidating IT, right? Driving efficiencies is, we realize that the way we're doing things now isn't sustainable. From an ARPU is high, but margin is low. So how do we squeeze out efficiencies through shared services, right? So I've got these operations in different countries. How do I enable them to leverage technology which resides in one particular country or an OPCO?
Yeah.
So that they're able to, share, and then I'm able to get more out of my investment as that entity. So it's been constantly about problem solving, but that's complicated. So let's take it back to when I was in back home, right? Yeah. So my mom has got chickens, and food is expensive. The feed is expensive.
Yeah.
Because she has to travel far to fetch the feed. So how do I solve that? I would say to her, okay, well, I can see that you're buying X amount of feed. I'm going to bring it closer to you, right? Yeah. So I'm going to order this massive truck that's going to go drop it off at my shop, and all of you guys are now going to start buying from me, right? So I think it started there, and it's always been that, and there's been that click between identifying common societal issues and getting a very simple solution
to those
which accommodates.
Yeah. Okay. On your journey so far, can you maybe pinpoint a scenario or a time in which you thought, I'm onto something? Because obviously you start the business, but you don't know if it's gonna bite or not, or if people are gonna even buy into it. But there must have been a moment where you thought, actually, I'm gonna stay the course because there's something here. What was that moment?
When I started making 10,000 rands a month, from earning over 50,000 rands a month.
Oh goodness. 10,000, you were like
10,000. I was like, yeah, okay, that's it.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because I then downscaled, right? So you earn a lot of money, but proportionally your expenses go up. So where you stay changes, the car you drive changes. When you downscale and you realize that all you need to survive in a month is 10,000 rands, and you start a business that gives you 10,000 rands or 11,000 rands, and you've broken even, and you're probably making even a slight profit.
Yeah.
Then you know, okay, from here onwards, I just need to rinse, repeat what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Right. And at that point for me, it was like, oh, then we can send that letter
Yeah.
to say, hey, guys, I'm out.
I'm out. Okay. I'm saying, guys, thank you so much for everything.
Yeah.
Okay. And then at the very start of your journey, did you find any bottlenecks or barriers to entry that made starting out difficult?
Always, even now. I mean, I think those are the things that otherwise everyone would be doing it. And I think it's something you just embrace at each stage. There's always going to be an obstacle. So I run a lot. I was talking to the guys earlier on saying that I had a run this morning. So I do trail running, and I think with it, the reason it resonates with me is when you're out there and there's water and there's a paddle and you must, because it's not going back, you must walk across, figure it out. And there's lovely trail shoes that you bought, which are very expensive. Now you must figure it out. You must go through.
Are they gonna be worth the price now? Yeah.
You know, I mean, like so it's always been that, is that, and you must accept that there's always going to be challenges. There's always going to be. I mean, massive companies are closing down, so you can never say you've made it, and you can never have that attitude, and we certainly don't, because we know that we can wake up and there's a massive disruptive technology. We're delivering internet through lasers. It's going to everyone, next to nothing.
Yeah.
Then what? Right? So challenges are just part of it, part of the journey. And I think without them, it wouldn't be as exciting. Right? So and I can't think of a single business that doesn't have that baked in.
Yeah.
So it's about your resilience and your ability to sometimes if you're fortunate, you can see it coming. Some instances you wake up and it's already there.
Yeah.
How do you get out of it? In some instances it means exiting, which means selling your business because that model doesn't work anymore. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. You've succeeded. You've built it to a point where it's made sense, and you must exit, pivot, get into something else. But there's always going to be challenges, and we continue to face them. We continue. Like right now, our biggest one is about scaling.
Yeah.
We have to figure it out, because the dream is no longer about connecting a couple of thousand people. It's about getting to the millions. How do you do that? So,
and still keep the substance of keeping it affordable.
100%. So the discussions are very different. Is the people you're talking to and you're saying, give me a couple of billion rands, like, how are you going to pay us back? Especially if you're charging, charging these low prices of yours, how are you going to do it? Now you must go back to the drawing board and like, okay, let me figure it out. Here's a model. The model works. But your model, okay, go and test it. To test it is another 20 million rands. I'm going to test this model. So you must now get someone's going to, okay, let's work on validating the business case. So you get financing for that, or you fund it out of your own pocket. So now you thought you had money, and that money
like 10,000.
Now it goes out, and you just figure it out. So it continues. It's like this cycle where it just continues to be that, but you must figure it out.
Okay. And then who makes up the team? Accelerit.
So fortunately, I've got people who've got similar background, but we deliberately hire people not based on their qualifications, but as we sit and we discuss with you, your background, where you come from, what you've done to get to where you are. And if we identify that, from a fabric perspective, you fit the profile of someone who wants to figure it out. So you don't have it yet, but you want to figure it out. And what drives it? It's not just money. Because then you can, I think there's a lot of companies where you do a lot less and you get a lot more. Right? So where that you can join. But we're certainly not one of those. So who makes up the team? Like-minded people who really have battled, and all of them have got the scars, and they've got the ambition, and they want to go somewhere. So we've built this team of 50 people who the sole passion is about figuring things out. And we continue growing that team.
On a daily basis.
Different, obviously, departments. So you have finance, but the marketing guys who are worrying about, and the marketing guys will tell them, you can't do your research online. Go and spend time there.
With the people,
Go and book a house and spend a week. Before you can tell me that you think this is going to sell or not, or this is how we should deliver this thing or not, or the pitch, Just go and and every month go and spend time there. So
Yeah, and that's interesting because figuring it out doesn't just mean the business in its holistic. It's every department. You have to figure it out
every
in that department.
in finance.
Yeah.
Finance, you would think it's simple, right? So you
Yeah.
think just collect money, but no, the way that those people in the burbs pay versus the people in the rural areas, the densely populated townships pay, very different.
Yeah.
Even densely populated in Joburg versus KZN, very different.
Yeah.
So you've got to be immersed. You've got to go there and collect and hear that auntie say, hey,
Well, the nuggets.
this thing doesn't work. Can you guys simplify it? I want connectivity.
Why is there
but-
not a button?
Yeah.
You can just press.
So I want it, but I'm not paying for it because this thing, but how you telling me I should pay Apple Pay is not going to work for me.
Yeah.
So you get to then string all of these people together and bring them together as fighters or like-minded people to say, okay, let's champion this cause and figure it all out together. Yeah.
Okay. Start of 50. Amazing. Okay. Let's talk about tech now and some of the trends that you are seeing that are coming up that you are finding quite fascinating. That in 10 years' time, we're going to be like, hey, in Mandla Wash, yes?
Yeah.
What are some of those?
I think largely, and they're not new. Well, new in the sense that we all new to the automation,
Yeah.
right? So how machines learn and replicate and are able to then do things better than we do them.
Yeah.
So our focus is in that, and we've hired someone who specializes in that from a business perspective, where the sole focus is how do we automate,
Yeah.
and not with the vision of firing people, but so that we can make our products, we keep it competitive. Because the more we automate means the more we can pass on the savings, right? If you're scaling, there is this, call it a linear line or graph, right? Which means for every 1,000 clients, you need to have 10 or 20 engineers.
Yeah.
If you're scaling and you want to reach millions and you still want to hire engineers, but you don't want to do it in this line, right? So you want to almost do this where you've got a lot of people joining, but the technology also assists from a staff complement, but from a service perspective, where it steps in and it's able to do things that you can't do. And by you can't do, it means it can answer queries at 1:51 a.m. when everyone else wants to sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Really
I think automation definitely a massive disruptor that we need to be looking out for.
Okay.
From a connectivity perspective, so there's the satellites that are coming and they're delivering connectivity to the masses. Right now, it's still quite costly, but there's gonna come a point where all of that is amortized into the cost, and somehow we figure out how to make it more accessible, which means that I can give you no longer have to pay 5,000 rands to get the actual terminal into your home. So that also is coming up, and it's something that we need to look at and embrace, because as much as there's disruption, we mustn't forget the vision is to connect people. So if there's a technology that complements what we're doing,
you're all for it.
we're good. We're good.
Okay. A lot of entrepreneurs that I've said where you have said have always it's a debate that I like to run here on whether or not entrepreneurs are made or they're born. What is your take?
That's a good one. So I think it's going to be subjective. So my answer is going to be very subjective, and it's just based off of my experience.
Yeah.
Is that I don't believe I was born an entrepreneur, but the environment I was in, even my brother runs his business. So literally, that environment didn't allow for anything else. Gotcha. From a thought perspective. You associate freedom with being able to wake up and do what you want.
Yeah.
Go to sleep.
Yeah. Know that you've done what you want.
Then it's a thing that continues. So if we're recording on Christmas Day or whichever day, it's all the same. Or if there's a query or you need to go out and do something, it's not work. So when you're in that environment where you see this day in, day out, then I think it rubs off. And I've also seen people where they grow up in these structures where what is important is retirement, right? So 65.
Yeah.
So when I start out, I'm thinking about retirement. Means I need to be employed and climb the corporate ladder as quickly as I can, so that by the time I retire, I've got enough. And that's sort of the driving element to each turn that they it's everything else is too risky because my parents have done it in this way. My mom is this, my dad is that, and they now retired and they okay because they're getting money every month, and this is how they did it. So I believe that it's the environment, and in some, I mean, when you're small and you're young, I don't think you can choose it. But there comes a time where you really can be more deliberate about it. Even for us, right? So when I say us, it's those people who decide to do their own thing. Entrepreneurs in the sense that you do your own thing, not successful, not making a lot of money. Because then there's also that confusion. I don't think that that's what it's about. But it's about, can you make your 10,000 rands and be content, because in between you do what you want. Then I think that's what it is. Yeah. So then you get that in that bucket. Where again it's about, now I'm old enough, but I want to scale this thing. Then you have to rethink and then choose again. Okay, who do I want in my sector? It's not, you're not ditching your old friends, but it's being deliberate about, okay, this person is built and scaled. Yeah. They've benefited because maybe someone before them did the same thing. So you put yourself in that grouping deliberately. So that you start thinking also from a scaling perspective, and you start thinking bigger. So you can, there's these choices that you make. It's probably not when you're too small, but as you get bigger, then you choose, and you are made again to be maybe a more ambitious entrepreneur from a scale perspective and from a reach perspective, depending on what it is you want to go for. So there's a constant choices, but are you born with it? I think whether you are or not, at a certain point, there is a choice
that you have to
make.
And
it's not for everyone. Yeah. Because remember when I said 10,000 rands a month? If you don't think that's enough, in my world, as an entrepreneur, you've made it. Yeah. So then you must think, because there's a lot of CEOs. It's a one-man show. If you look at the balance sheet and if you look at the expenses and everything, they are more successful than a lot of companies. So as individuals. Yeah. If I'm earning 1 million rands, and my cost maybe about 300,000 rands, you know how many companies are running at a 70% margin? Not a lot. Consulting firms are happy if they're getting 50%. It's 45%. There's a lot of consultants. So if as an individual you can achieve that, so it's about, what does it mean to you being an entrepreneur? Shucks. And if that person also wakes up and they get to, because there are people who are like that, I'm a CEO and I really thoroughly enjoy what I do. But there must not be this obsession of being an entrepreneur. Yeah. I think ultimately. And the glitz and the glam of it. Yeah. Yeah. So I think maybe, the focus should be about, are you happy doing what you're doing? Okay, not happy. All right. Mandla and the likes. How did you get to choose what it is you want to do? Then maybe that's more the discussion. Yeah. Because then I think it changes things a little bit. Yeah. It removes the facade that it's all glitz and glamour. Yeah. And lots of money. Lots of money. Everyone wants everybody that's said where you're sitting says that no, it's not. It's really not. All right. Okay. What are some of the things that you found in your journey so far that whether it's a department, whether it's the tax element of it, whether it's the accounting, whatever element that you found, this was really just unnecessary. And I'm so glad I outsourced it, or something that you think, I had no idea that I needed this, and I'm glad I learned about it. Yeah. So what was unnecessary? No one wants, I think it's good to learn, but there's certain things that when you learn, and the way they hit you is you can't get back up because you've made terrible mistakes which other people before you have learned, but because you weren't associated or in those circles, you also got to, like, I don't think it's necessary for all of us to make the same mistakes.
Yeah, it's not necessary. That's why you're here.
Yeah.
So that people outside don't have to make the same mistakes.
I think that this networking thing is probably underrated, but you have to be deliberate about it if you want to start a business. Try, to learn as much, especially, about the things that the people did wrong.
Yeah.
Whether it is, I know for us, it was, oh no, we need to have an office. We absolutely have to have an office. So you're making that little bit of money, then you go and you get an office, which takes out probably 50% of that. But then later on, you cost correct. Now it's 3 years later. If you're paying 10,000 rands a month, that's easily runs up to about 400,000 close.
Yeah.
You didn't have to make that mistake, right? But it's very difficult also because there's that thing that I want to have my office. People must come and see it. Or you rent. One of the things we did, which, there's different schools of thought. But for us specifically, it was about, let's own the property.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't make sense. We can't be paying, like in 3 years, we would have paid off the property that where we in rent, we would have paid off and owned it on our balance sheet. It's there.
Yeah, and it's an asset too.
It's an asset, and I can leverage it, right? So I can get more money and I can grow. So but there's all those pitfalls that. But they tailor, because in some situations, especially if you've got a lot of funding that comes different directions, so it probably makes sense to lease versus to own. Whatever so I think some of the other things that you do really well earlier on is to recognize that you cannot be a one-man show.
Yeah.
Otherwise you're going to burn out. So it's figuring out very early how to incorporate other people. And learning that, a rising tide will lift all shit. Right? So you don't have to think that I'm getting more people. This one's gonna go on. The vision is common. We're all going up, and then we're all gonna be good. So it's
going up together. Yeah.
And I think that's, but probably benefiting from putting together structures earlier on allowed me to then have. I made horrible mistakes when it came to some of the investments. As I say, it's not even an investment. Like, get a big office, get a fleet, get this, get that, much earlier on, before you figure out the nitty-gritties of the business. But the highlights is you get really, really strong people to work with you earlier on, who aren't necessarily driven by money, because then it's going to come in and suck it out, and probably resisting the urge to get external funding. Because if you haven't figured out your footing, then there's a lot of the decisions will be made for you. You might end up without a company. Yeah. Being diluted to nothing. Yeah. So so we kept that very closely. So we were happy to learn, stay the course.
Even if it took a little longer.
Yeah, just learn a little bit about the industry and how it moves, like the products and how it, and we're seeing it now, the cycles that we didn't see before. Yeah. This is like pre-COVID, boom, fiber, COVID, spike, post-COVID, people want to go to work. Yeah. Recession, people don't have money, they want connectivity, innovate on product, and you figure it out. So that when you now want to scale and you want to run fast, you can go and get 1 billion rands and know that you're going to be good for it, right? Because the foundation is good. Not that anything is guaranteed, but the foundation is good. Yeah. If you continue to make good decisions, and you likely are going to be okay. But there's also other lessons that I haven't learned. Yeah. I think right now my focus is around. So when you scale this thing, you've also got to learn to, it no longer is a branch or an entity that runs in South Africa successfully, but it becomes a template that you can deploy. Now, how do you put that together? I don't know anyone personally that I can call and say, hey, have you done this? So this is the thing that I'm going out and being deliberate about now, is finding those networks of
People who've done
it, figured it out, is that, okay, this is how this thing works. And really it means, this works really well. How do we replicate it? Not with the assumption that if I just lift this template and deploy it somewhere else, it's going to work. Because what are the nuances that? So it's that. So that now it becomes like a new thing that I must figure out, right? So and it expands beyond, like, just even personally, like how do you manage finances, right? So it's because remember, if you're an entrepreneur, you always live for like next year I'm good, like it's fine, but when you begin to scale, you've got to split the business from you.
Yeah.
There's the business and there's you.
Yeah.
You can be doing horribly in life, horribly, but the business is doing really well.
Yeah.
So you've got to figure out how
someone is winning. Yeah.
Yeah, it can't be the same thing that if I'm struggling, then the business is also struggling.
Yeah.
So that split, getting that right, I think is, one of the areas that I'm being deliberate, and I'm saying, okay, how do we get there now? What are the things we need to do? Who's done it? Who's been there? What's been their experience?
Okay, amazing stuff. And how would you define your leadership style?
Yeah.
You can even start from then to now, because I'm sure it's changed.
I think it's changed, but it changes. It's seasonal.
Yeah.
It's seasonal. So I think there's times when you want to give people a bit of leeway, and you say to them that I trust that, I recruited you, so I trust that you will know what needs to be done. So, we're not sitting on a stash of cash like Apple. So, which
is going to allow you to fail.
Yeah, fail. He blew a couple of billions, but we're good.
It's okay. Did you learn something? Okay.
So it is quite strict. It's not a thing that I'm ashamed of. I think it's very strict in that I want to know what we are doing. I want to be very close to the detail. Yeah. But I also want to allow you, if you're running a department, you have to hire your own people. Yeah. So that if things work out, then you can say, hey, I've done really well. I did
this, yeah.
But also if they don't, you can't come back and say, hey, Mandla, you said. So you see people sending you CVs, hey, here's my auntie or uncle or my friend. Please hire them. I'm like, guys, I don't hire people. I don't really. You can send it. I'll just send it to HR. I'll send it to whoever it needs to go to so they can make that decision. So I think it adaptable depending on the season.
Yeah.
So there's a season to, figure things out a little bit because you've got surplus. But there's also a season where you just cannot
afford to slip up.
And if you've done it well, because I also can't insist that I know how to do it if I'm the reason why things haven't worked out. So you've got to also have that appreciation.
Yeah.
That sometimes maybe you are the problem.
Yeah.
So maybe
remove yourself.
Yeah, maybe.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so I think it's adaptable. But you must ask the guys I work with. I don't know.
I will absolutely ask them. Okay. Yeah. Let's give some entrepreneurs some nuggets, right? Just things that you think, top 3, top 5. You can decide how far you want to go. Of things that you think, guys, for you to be able to, if you're looking to start something, how to start and leap from that position, and if your business is like 2 years old and you're looking to scale up from that level, what are the things that are fundamental, the things that I need?
Through and through networking, I cannot overemphasize the importance of networking.
Yeah.
It's not playing golf.
Yeah.
By the way, it's not.
Because that's what people think.
No.
Book out your Sunday.
No, it's not playing golf.
Club.
Yeah, no, okay. Absolutely not. But like you have to be deliberate. So if you're scaling, which I think often is a challenge that even big companies face. Like that scaling thing is an age-old thing, and that's why some of the consulting firms exist.
Yeah.
because it really, really is difficult to figure it out. But there are people who have figured it out. So just surrounding yourself with the right people. Doesn't mean inboxing them every second and saying I want to, but just like you come to the office, you go to the offices of the companies that you would want, that you see your thing scaling from a level perspective. Then you start getting close to those companies, maybe even doing business with them, which I found has been really good. You know, you think some of these things are expensive, but now you can get a Bidvest to come and clean your toilets. You can, as a small company. That's what we have. They can come and they can clean. But as you get closer and you pay them and you understand how they work and you see that the staff comes and how they work, everything is, even that plastic that they use to change. You're like, okay, your courier company is not, just your bucket going, no, get it like a DPD or whatever, the big courier companies, and figure out how their processes work. These guys are everywhere, they're in Europe. So you figure out how how do you know that a package has been delivered? So I've sent out a router to a client. How do you know? Like your systems, how do you know that I owe you? Because that's also another big challenge is your business grows, but you forget to collect. You don't, the inability, is then 3 months or 4 months, the client hasn't paid me in 4 months. Let me call them. Those also, like you, 15 days later, they're going to be on you, right? So they know how, and doing business with those companies also, I think, gives you a little bit more weight. Then you can sit with their CEO, then you can sit with their CIO, and you can have discussions. Okay, we are expanding. How do we expand with you? They'll make time for you for doing that. So I think that part is very important. Is not the inboxing, and I'm not. It's not a deterrent. I'm not saying people shouldn't do it, but chances are you're not going to get a response.
Experience has told you as well. That no one has responded.
No, I mean, tons of. Please be my mentor. The guy's like probably sitting with 100 emails asking, please be my mentor. He's like, but who? What's going on? So figure out an innovative way to get into. If you want to be an entrepreneur, I think so. The first question is it's more again about the goal. Is what is that thing that. How do you define it? Is it a money thing? Is it a freedom thing? Is it what is it? So if you figure that out, so you want to start your own business because you've been fired, because that also happens, right? So you've been fired and you want to figure it out. So what is that niche? I mean, it's very difficult, but in where you exist, so a chicken thing is someone will say, but Mandla, why are you even talking about that business? That business back in 2005 was moving over 100,000 rands of feed a month. I've just started working. And now you come to work and you're driving a fancy car and people think, this guy is in over his head. Dads, they don't know what you're doing on the side. And you're just smiling, like, let's keep it going. So it's about that as well. But back to what the actual thing is about that niche is what is needed here and now. Do it small scale and then expand it. But it's not going to, I don't think it'll ever be a magic pill and I can say to you, do this and that.
C and D,
but I think get into the spaces, do it, try, fail. Don't be afraid of failing. I mean, if you've been fired, can't get much worse.
You can't go through anything. Fair enough. Okay. Knowing what you know today, would you do it all again?
I would.
Every single part of it.
I would do it differently.
Okay.
I would definitely do it differently. I would start the networking elements much sooner.
Okay.
So I would, and just appreciating that there is what I know and what I don't know. And what I don't know, there are people who've been through it. So I think that's component to it. Would it work? I don't know, because a lot of it also, if you think about when you're starting these things out, is what is the infrastructure that's around you and the support that you have. So if maybe those variables also were a bit different, then because there's someone who will start and I'll say, no, I've got you. Just do it. Let's give you don't worry about this for now. Just do, build, scale, do
Yeah.
whatever you need to do. Then it's a very different thing to someone who's also balancing, putting food on the table.
Yeah.
And at the same time, building this thing that you want, where the vision is to get affordable connectivity to the masses. So yeah, but would I do it? I think the journey is an exciting journey, it continues to be. So I'd absolutely do it because someone was asking me, when are you going on leave? And I'm like, but I don't know what that is.
What is leave?
Yeah, it's not exhaustion, but there's no need.
Yeah.
Right, so there's absolutely no need. You get tired, of course, you take a day off.
Recouping.
Yeah, but that's what it is, right? So there's not like this thing of taking a week or 2 weeks off. I haven't done that since I resigned. Yeah, since I was employed. But there hasn't been a need.
Yeah.
There really hasn't been a need. So yeah, I definitely do
That just means that there's work to be done.
Work to be done, work that you want to do sometimes. Well, more often than not, this is when you're employed because, or at least in my case, is I did exciting things, but there were also projects that were not really aligned where I couldn't see the aligned. Like, why am I doing this? What's the value it adds? Even to the people that I'm doing it for, I know they're paying a lot of money, but what value does it add? To them, it's just like, they want compliance. They want us, okay, we've got policies.
Yeah.
Then they take and they stash them. Like they stash them. And you're like, but now I've done all this work and I haven't slept and my product is going to be shelved. It doesn't make sense. Right? So yeah. So there's a lot of reasons why I would absolutely do it again. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. Okay. Let's talk Accelerit Technologies in the future. Dream with me. What are we doing?
Yeah.
But it's 10 years, 30 years, 50 years from now. What should we look at?
Yeah.
All of it.
So yeah, I think there's a lot of other disciplines we need to get into, right? So, but with the same discipline.
Yeah.
From an infrastructure perspective, what can it do to not liberate people, but making it accessible? So there's technology, and technology, what is beautiful about technology is you find technology everywhere, right? A hospital down the road, courts, you go wherever you want, broadcasting, there's technology everywhere. So now starting to be more developing the industry expertise.
Yeah.
So in mining technology, what can it do? The mining community, the town around, the schools, the clinics, and that around that, what does it look like? In another vertical, what is technology and how do we get it there?
Yeah.
So I think Accelerit morphs into that going forward, right? So you see there's a home division, but there's also a more corporate focus that looks at different verticals. And in these verticals, we start getting insight. First, what are the challenges? And then working to solve those, but not in a traditional way. Even from a business case perspective, right? So funding models and how do we put it together? How do I come into your space and understand what the challenges are, run a POC, be it CSI, be it whatever driver it is, play into that, work with you to enable you to get to that target, leveraging technology without necessarily breaking the bank. So if your vision is reached, then we're aligned.
Yeah.
Masses, technology, then we're aligned. Whichever vertical you're in. Whether like telcos, the towers, right? Like looking at that, how do we rethink that model? And it goes solar. It's about the monitoring. You go into a building and it tells you, okay, here's usage in an apartment, because now you can see your electricity usage is this. But we want to have a solar component, and how do we bill for that? How do we deploy and then build the tenants? How do we play a part in that, getting infrastructure in that enables that? Whether it's this block that wants to run that, or it's a conglomerate that says, hey, I want to deploy, but I want to figure out a model. Right? So it's more that, it becomes that. Yeah.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls,
Mandla Ngcobo, thank you so much.
Thank you.